Hi and welcome to today's program. We are here at Institute for X to cover an exciting workshop about tools for change. So we're going to talk about connection with ourselves, with the community, about activism and honoring our pain. Follow us.
Okay, now my screen just is a bit... These things also happen. Don't know why. Okay, let's do it like this. So just to go a little bit into the some of the terms, what's the place that I'm approaching from? Just to also be honest, I was invited to facilitate this workshop as part of the project called Sweet City. Can you do something about democratic actions that bypass electoral politics? I needed to think about that, what that actually means, all these words. I understand each of them, but I'm not necessarily, that's not the language that I use. So I want to also clarify of what I can bring in this space and what I cannot. When I think about democratic actions, I'm thinking about those that are not necessarily only connected with politics per se, but they also are. So it can be all of these things, just staying informed about what's happening around. Of course, it's about voting and not just giving the vote, but also participating in any way in the voting process, of volunteering or talking to your family members. I don't know, maybe some of you heard that there was this whole movement in Ireland, talk to your grandma about abortion ban, and like, who can you activate in your circles to do certain things, participating in political processes, joining campaigns, and so on, getting social about issues that matter to you on different channels. And last but not least, and also what I'm most interested to focus on, is about building community. So kind of how to identify the problems in the communities that we are part of, and then collaborate on doing that. And this is also where I want to go back to what Alessia already said, that, yeah, I also really I'm advocating for this. How can we bring these different parts together? And yes, and understand that the change, any kind of change, is part of drops, really. And there's I think also going beyond this, that you need to do everything. It's impossible. It's also part of this modernistic, white supremacist, patriarchal thinking that's it's like either big or nothing, but like how can we do our part and bring them all together into collective change movements? Which brings also to another word that is quite often contested or unclear, and maybe I'm just going to talk for myself. For me, it has been so for many times, and I have been like spiraling in and out of being called an activist and then saying, no, but I'm not an activist because I don't put this label on myself, what actually activism really is. Then at certain moments, taking this up and saying, yeah, I'm an activist, I'm doing activist work. So I've always had like a very, I don't know, challenging relationship with these terms, because they are quite loaded in what they mean. And so nowadays, where I mainly draw my understanding of activism from is, from the same work that Reconnects that I already brought in this room. Also loved this book by Alistair McIntosh and his student, whose name I forgot, damn it. But the book is called Spiritual Activism, where they explore like the spiritual notion of being an activist or activism work. And in that sense, there being an activist is actually one who brings change in the way our relationships are structured, changing community, and often taking certain things to a point of discomfort, currently existing things. And in this kind of definition or framing of that, there is no actions that are too big or too small for activism, really. It's not that only those who are really part of these activist campaigns that end up on the streets or on the media, that only those can be considered activism. Like really anything that challenges the relations, ways our relationships are structured on different kind of levels can be considered this. And of course, there can be in many of your heads now, no, I don't agree with this, and that's okay, and let's talk about it. I'm just proposing this is the point that I chose for me to enter this work from. And yeah, and also thinking how people become activists. It is also different. For some it's a choice. Some are being born into families that have been activists for. Some are really forced because they have a certain identity or they live in a place or whatever it is that they just actually don't have a choice to not be an activist because else it's about survival really. So there's many different ways also how becoming an activist happens or choosing this label, and with which I'm not saying that if there are people in this room who don't call this yourselves like this, that you should. Absolutely not, just proposing of different ways of thinking about it and maybe stretching the notion of this term.
Can anyone be a change maker?
I think anyone who is who cares can be a change maker, yes, and I think we all need to take that role in our communities, families, smaller circles, friend circles, workplaces, and I see change making as definitely not an exclusive thing only for certain chosen people, but for everyone who wants to disrupt the oppressive systems that we are part of. Mm-hmm. Any comments, questions to this? The challenging relationship with yeah.
I think it's interesting to also recognize which different actions or observe in your life and try to list what could be activist, even though it doesn't seem so obviously activist because you're not there protesting, and to recognize it so actually you give it ground to exist, and then you can make it evolve more. I think if you recognize and you're able to see that this has something that can grow bigger, then it's already a step to then speak about it, to change and make it evolve, and then focus on it. And then try to, I'm saying the same.
I also think that activism or activists can be a bit intimidating word or term, because then it's suddenly something you have to identify yourself with. And I think most of us have some, at least I have some specific idea of what an activist should be like. And especially since I'm a part of this new group, which has to be activist, but none of us has done a lot of activist work before. Just participated in some activist work, but we created some. So I think it's a label somehow.
Yeah. Thank you for those. Exactly, and just when you were talking, I was thinking it's also intimidating because sometimes it's also dangerous, like physically dangerous, to have the label of being an activist, and there are people who are being killed for doing activist work in certain ways. There are people who are, okay, maybe not killed, but suffer definitely from other kinds of violence. So it is also a word to be taken seriously and think of, okay, when do you want to use it? When do you feel safe to use it? But it's a proposal more to think, okay, but how do you define it for yourself, even if you don't put like an external label on yourself, and in what kind of spaces you do that and not. And another thing I was thinking that what I also invite here is to remember that all of these words, they are not value-laden per se. So to say, activism is not necessarily always a positive thing. You can also do activist work for the kind of change that I'm guessing many of us would not like to see here, there. People who go in the streets in Latvia to protest the notion of family being stretched in the constitution, they're doing activist work. They're collecting signatures to say that no, the family is just a man and a woman and a child, and this is also activism. But we are also not, at least many of the people that I talk to, are also not used to having this lens also, that it's not necessarily always about bringing something that is positive change. And then this question is also what also is positive change and for whom, and how that affects all of us differently. So just to bear in mind that they are not good or bad words, they just are, and how we work with them is then changing. Okay, to move on to the tools. So what I'm actually, I mean, all of this hopefully are already some tools that can be used in conversations and so on. But more concretely, in this time that we have together, I wanted to bring in two frameworks to work with. And one of this is this work that reconnects, and the 3 stories of our time. And the other one will be something that we will work more to in this section of going forth. It's something that's I developed getting inspired from many other sources, that is kind of an action habitat, or how can you actually plan like your activist work. So there will be more one hands-on and more, I don't know how to, not to describe it labels, but the first one is this work that reconnects, and why I resonate so much with it. It also offers this broader way of looking at where we are right now and where can we potentially be going. And it's based around something called 3 stories of our time. And some of you have heard that before from me or elsewhere, I'm sure. And it's 3 stories that are happening right now at the same time. And the question is, which one do you want to get behind? So all of them are right here, right now. One story is the business as usual story. And that's all this that's okay, it's not that bad, we actually don't have any problems, but we are quite good. If we change a few things here and there, we can keep growing. Growth as this, I don't know, the holy grail that we follow, of never-ending development and growth in economy and everything else. And and this is the business as usual, which also would say, okay, there will be crises, this will happen, okay, certain species will go extinct, but we'll just keep going. So that is, I don't know, does it resonate? Have you heard this story? Okay, then there's the story of the great unraveling, which is also happening, which is climate activists, journalists, writers, thinkers, philosophers, I don't know, and so on, who are actually calling the red flags and saying, hey, we are actually in a catastrophic state. Again, people are dying, the planet is dying because of what we are doing. There's the change that is happening is no longer to be reversed, and so it's like this, that okay, we are in a time of unraveling. Whatever was there before, it's now changing and getting out of proportion, or so to say. So that's also the story. And there are many people behind that, and I think that probably should be even more people behind that to actually bring out this, okay, business as usual, not so healthy for anybody. There are also all of these other things happening, and there's many examples for that. And then the story, that's the third story, also at the same time. He's the one also that's like teachers like Joanna Macy, and our work is a lot connected with this story of the great turning, that that we are also simultaneously with, okay, there's some things that just keep going as they have been going, there's this great unraveling, but that there's also this potential now to join the movement or the story of turn, of reinventing, reimagining what can actually be possible, that we don't need to do it as it was before. And yes, it's catastrophic. Can we think of other ways? So this is super simplified. I really recommend to read it in the books, but in the time here, maybe that's enough. So that's the story that that Reconnect is mainly also rooted in. Like, what do we need to turn? collectively and individually. And then it comes into this spiral work that we will be doing from now on for some time, which there's this drawing of this, which consists of 4 elements. And the fourth one is rooting yourself in gratitude. And I really love this one in many spaces, and that I bring this in. It's also, some people kind of feel nervous about it. It's this woo-woo thing, like gratitude, like positive thinking and stuff. And in the sense that I'm proposing, it's not at all about that. And some of you have heard me say that, but it's a subversive, radical activist practice to practice gratitude, because it also already in its core challenges the very consumerist system that is telling all the time that you don't have enough, you're not enough, you need more. So practicing this is something that is both subverting this system in itself and also resourcing ourselves for then going forward and doing the work that we want to be doing. Does it make sense? From then, where you've kind of resourced yourself and actually have something to stand on in the gratitude practice, it goes then further into something that is called honoring our pain, and yet another tool for subverting what is told, because this is also something that is not normalized, that we actually honor our pain, what it does to us to see that all of the things that are happening around, to connect with this emotional experience of that, and go beyond what I have heard many times. I don't know about you, but whenever I bring it up, that's okay, this is hurting me, that women in Poland fucking need to go, and sorry for the language, but need to go again on the marches because they're taking away their basic rights to choose what they do with their body, that this is painful, I want to cry about it. I had people say, yeah, but you're too sensitive. Like, you can't do anything about it. This is not your thing. And this too sensitive is where this honoring our pain is subverting that. There's no such thing as being too sensitive. It's really connecting to this pain, because from then you can see it with new eyes and go forth and do something about it. And this is what it invites to do. And
we can't escape from suffering and not either eliminate that. We have to embrace. That's the huge point, because you go stronger after that.
Yeah.
And actually because emotions are really subjective somehow. It's related in which which concepts and experiences that do you have, and then your judgment in between. And then it's not so long ago that they started a research in emotional thrive in the communities. That comes from, I don't know, the 70s, not so much. And it's huge to make that work, because it's really subjective. You have to, it's a qualitative sensation, and it's not so long ago that we are focusing how emotions can drive communities, and it's really powerful. It is.
Yes.
I got emotional.
No, sorry. Thank you. And yes, please. That's also the invitation here. That's also the invitation here today. Okay. I have done talking. I think that's all that I wanted to say, and I'd rather just invite us to dive in and practice. How about that? Okay. So, in your notebooks, on page, let me see, 8, exactly. There are some prompts to finish for yourself. And I would propose, I also just check the time, that we do it, that you take 10 minutes for this. Then when you are done, see if somebody else is done, and make the eye contact, sit down and read them out to one another, see how that feels. And then we will, so let's keep it kind of flowy, and it's 2:20, so whenever, 10 minutes, and then you find another and talk about it, and then I will.
So right now we answer?
Yeah, you have 10 minutes for that. past 1 because now it's 20 to 1, so we have time for conversations. And it was the kind of, we have some snacks, so bring your own lunch. There's lunches in the architecture school maybe still up.
Yeah, I think it's
yeah, and then maybe we can gather in the sun and hang out. Who wants? See if you really see everybody.
Feel your coccyx that goes down towards the floor. And we will just increase a bit the shaking. So just in terms of intensity, you keep the weight dropping down towards the floor, and you just rise up the intensity a bit. And I will invite you to keep your eyes open, and you can keep your eyes free actually. So and let's intensify a tiny bit more. Another great tool is just to focus on the breath. Make sure it's flowing. We just, together with the voice, the movement will be this, like maybe a little bit more like this, from the sternum to the center, throwing the energy in, and we just make a sound with the voice, like ha, 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 together. Again, let's do it together. Ha, taking the energy in, from center to in. Every time you exhale, you feel your belly active here, center active.
Never drop. Okay, then from there, yeah, as I was already explaining, like this is spiral a bit, and from this rootedness into gratitude, my invitation is to go then a bit further and look at what are the pain points and what we're actually burning for, and what kind of hopes we all individually, collectively are longing for, what hopes we have for what kind of change in the world. And this will be group work, so I also think it's really inviting to like meet more people here in the room as the space, and connect on that level. And but before we do that, I invite into one more movement practice. And let's imagine this space is like very, like it has, the energy is leaking out, I feel, in different directions. But let's imagine that this circle is kind of also our walls, let's say, or invisible ones within which we move, so not so much further out. We will start by moving just freely around in this enclosed kind of space, exploring your rhythm, how it is. You can walk in the way that you feel like walking today, just for some moment. And then the invitation, so this practice is also about getting together back into like feeling the group and one another after lunch and different smaller conversations. So whenever one of you feels like it, you can stop without saying anything, and we will try to tune into this moving in like all kinds of directions, not in like a row, and not seeing necessarily everyone with our eyes, but trying to attune to whenever somebody stops, we all stop. And probably in the beginning it will take a little bit more time for everyone to stop, and let's try to bring it up to a level where we can just be instantly stopping with this one person. So that requires a bit of attention. So whenever you feel like it, you stop, and then whenever you feel like starting to move again, the one who stops, you can start moving again, and then we keep moving until the next one stops. Is that clear? Yeah. Let's see how it goes. Walk. Let's walk. Wow, beautiful. The last one was in a, you can stop now where you were. I think got it, and it was really nice to observe, to see that last ones were really in almost on the second. Okay, so maybe just look around and see if you have 3 people around you that you could work with for the next half an hour. And the invitation is that in your notebooks, which you can take later, there's this honoring our pain section. And the invitation now is really to take time to share, all of you, around the prompts that are there. And they are in a specific order, so please keep the order. There's a reason for that. Apart from this, it's up to you how you use this half an hour. You can say that everyone speaks on the first and then everyone speaks on the second, or you can do that one speaks to all of them, but just make sure that you use this half an hour, that you have enough time for everyone to contribute. And then in half an hour, which is, let me check when. So it's 2:05. Let's gather back here in a circle.
Sorry, I don't understand. Do we do the whole group together? Or
The 4 of you that are, yes. So you need to find 4 close to you that you could. And it should be possible because you're 16, so it should be 4 groups of 4. Unless somebody disappeared. Did you ask some people to talk with you also? Or? Start with the participants after the workshop, or can write but it's not yet. Then you tell me. It's also what's coming up, and I actually really like these, but more like for you in your collective or with the people who you do certain activist work with, yeah. So you talk from the personal and struggles with confidence and taking up too much space, and this, there's things happening in that now.
That was all from Tools for Change and Institute for X. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe we'll see each other next time.